What's up, fantasy managers? Welcome back to another episode of the First Pitch Podcast brought to you by PitcherList.com. My name is Jake Crumpler, and I'll be your host for this edition of the podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler, and you can find all of my work at CrumplerBaseball.com. Let's dive into everything baseball related from Monday, May 19th. We'll start it off, as always, with the transactions, injuries, news, and notes from around the league, kicking things off with the bad news as starting pitcher Reese Olson was placed on the 15-day IL with a ring finger injury. It's unclear exactly what that injury is, and that means we have no clue how long Olson's going to be out. My best bet would be that it is a blister, which would mean that Olson's probably going to be back in the minimum time. In the meantime, relief pitcher Chase Lee was recalled from the minors in a corresponding move. It's unclear who's going to replace Olson in the rotation for the Tigers moving forward. Next, we'll discuss our transactions and start with starting pitcher Mick Abel, who's optioned to the minors after his impressive debut. I guess the Phillies prefer Taijuan Walker for some reason. So Mick Abel will head back to the minor leagues, but he'll be back in the major leagues at some point this year, not only because he had so much success in his debut, but also because he's due to pitch in the majors right now. It's his time. He's got the prospect pedigree as well, deserves to be in the majors. That's Mick Abel. Next, we've got outfielder Teoscar Hernandez, who was activated from the 10-day IL. He had been out with an adductor strain. For some reason, I thought that was a much more serious injury than it turned out to be. Apparently, that's just another word for a groin strain, but Teoscar will return to being the Dodgers' everyday right fielder, which will shift Andy Pages to center field and outfielder James Outman to the minors. Next, we have outfielder Austin Slater, who was activated from the 10-day IL. He missed over a month after undergoing surgery to repair a torn meniscus. That seems like a very quick return for any type of surgery, but nonetheless, Slater is back and he will be the White Sox everyday left fielder moving forward. Brooks Baldwin was optioned to the minors in a corresponding move. Next, we have third baseman Matt Shaw, who was recalled from the minors. He was optioned to the minors over a month ago after beginning his career with a 172 average, 1 homer, no steals, and a 62 WRC plus. But the Cubs clearly want Shaw in the majors after they had him on the opening day roster. And I think they sent him back down to the minors just to get him some confidence back, because you want somebody like him, a top prospect, to have some success in the majors so we can parlay that into future success. And in the minors, after being returned there, Shaw batted .286 with 6 homers, 5 steals, and a 150 WRC plus at AAA. So he clearly hasn't lost a step, just needed to get his mind right. Shaw should be the Cubs' everyday third baseman moving forward, which will force John Birdie and Vidal Brujan into fighting for playing time off the bench. So they'll see a huge downturn in their playing time. And in a corresponding move, Nicky Lopez was designated for assignment. Next, we have starting pitcher Spencer Strider, who is officially activated from the 15-day IL, but he will not start until today in Washington. Strider has been out for a couple weeks with a hamstring strain. Next, we have starting pitcher JT Ginn, who was activated from the 15-day IL to start versus the Angels yesterday. He had been out for a month with elbow inflammation. Ginn was not great in his return, tossing 4 innings, allowing six hits and 4 earned runs with no walks and 7 Ks. He induced 8 whiffs with 37% CSW across 79 pitches, and that 37% CSW is thanks to 17 called strikes on his sinker. That's incredible from Ginn, but it was much too hittable in this one, and the velocity was back to the 2024 velocity, which is a mile per hour down from what we saw early in the season. So we're going to wait and see Ginn. We're going to wait for Ginn to display that increased velocity once again. In terms of news, relief pitcher Porter Hodge is expected to be placed on the 15-day IL with an oblique strain. That should mean Ryan Presley might be able to get back into the closer role on the north side of Chicago. Next, we have starting pitcher Hunter Green, who's expected to be activated from the 15-day IL on Friday to start versus the Cubs. Green has been out with a groin strain, so it's good to see him back, continue his pursuit of a Cy Young award. And lastly, we have starting pitcher Casey Mize, who is expected to be activated from the 15-day IL on Saturday to start versus the Guardians. He will replace Reese Olson in the rotation. So earlier when I said it was unclear who's going to replace him, it's very clear it's going to be Casey Mize by the weekend. Now we'll take a look at some of the notable performances from Monday, a day in which we had just 11 and a half games on the slate. And I say 11 and a half because the matchup between the Guardians and Twins was suspended in the top of the fourth. It will be resumed today. We'll start things off with our hitters, leading off with outfielder Jesus Sanchez, who helped the Marlins to a win versus the Cubs, going 3 for 5 with a pair of runs, a home run, 4 runs batted in, and a stolen base to complete the combo meal. He's up to 2 homers and 5 steals on the season now. His homer traveled 409 feet at 112 miles per hour. And there are things to be excited about with Sanchez and also things to be concerned about. His slow start is definitely unlucky. Batting just 240 right now with a 670 OPS, but he's got a more selective approach this year that has unfortunately impacted his ability to impact the ball. Sanchez is walking more than ever, but he's also striking out more than ever. But as a result, his StatCast metrics are seeing a huge downturn. And this is a guy who was always a standout in that department. Sanchez is somebody who in the past 2 seasons actually has sported a 12% barrel rate, but in 2025, Sanchez's barrel rate is below 7%, and he's sporting a 39% hard hit rate. So really not great batted ball metrics from Sanchez. I love that he's leading off every day, but it's the Marlins, and so it's not really a lineup I'd call electric. It's not really going to be one where you're going to see Sanchez producing incredible run totals. And with his new approach, I think he's going to be more of an average speed and runs guy. And I don't think that's very exciting in standard leagues until Sanchez can reincorporate the barrels that made me so excited about him in the offseason. Next, we have catcher Gabriel Moreno, who helped the Diamondbacks to win in LA against the Dodgers. Nice. Going 1 for 4 with a run, a home run, and 2 runs batted in. It was his second homer of the year, and it traveled 411 feet at 108 miles per hour. It feels like Moreno has failed to live up to all the prospect hype, but if you take off your fantasy tinted glasses, mine aren't, I actually need them to see, you'll notice he's a defensive stud with above league average offensive production. It just doesn't translate to standard fantasy leagues. Moreno is a beast in points leagues because of his excellent plate discipline. He never strikes out. He doesn't walk a lot this year, but last year it was double digits. So he was a beast in the strikeout to walk department. But Moreno has no power or speed, and so that makes his batting average empty in standard leagues. I wouldn't waste your time waiting for a power surge to come from Moreno in standard leagues, and I'd send him to the wire unless you're desperate for a catcher or batting average. Lastly, we have outfielder Ramon Laureano, who did all he could, but the Orioles lost in Milwaukee. He went 3 for 4 with a run, a home run, and an RBI. It was his 6th homer of the year, and it traveled 393 feet at 108 miles per hour. Laureano is getting a shot in Baltimore while they struggle to employ healthy outfielders, and he's looking completely different, batting 272 with an 870 OPS, and that's supported by a new look under the hood. Laureano must have had LASIK over the offseason because he just refuses to chase this year. His plate vision has been much improved, as we've seen his O-swing percentage reduced by over 10% from last year, which has led to a career-high 16% barrel rate and a 48% hard hit rate that backs up this year's power gains. No, I don't think Laureano is doing steroids again, and I'm skeptical that this pace is going to stick, but the batted ball metrics suggest that you might as well roll with Laureano while he's on fire. Now we'll head to the mound and check out some notable starting pitching performances, opening with Edward Cabrera, who helped the Marlins to win versus the Cubs, tossing 5 innings, allowing 5 hits and 3 earned runs while walking 1 and striking out 7. He induced 15 whiffs with 38% CSW across 90 pitches. Cabrera has always been a pitcher who struggled with control, so shouldn't we be celebrating his career low walk rate produced by an increased presence in the zone? It worked somewhat for a third straight start here, as his mid-90 sinker lived in the zone for 10 called strikes and 34% CSW, while his curveball was a constant nuisance, going for 48% CSW. Cabrera's slider's command was excellent in this one, as he kept it down in glove side, inducing 5 whiffs with the pitch, while his changeup wasn't at its peak, but it induced a trio of whiffs against left-handed batters. And if Cabrera can maintain more whiffs from his breakers on a curveball and a slider while living in the zone with his sinker and showing up with his signature changeup every day, then I think he's got a legit chance to break out. But for now, Cabrera is just a cherry bomb, as his command goes in and out, and he has blow-up starts accompanied by ones that you're not quite sure whether or not they help you. Cabrera gets the Angels in LA next, and I think that's fine. I think that's a questionable start on my ranks that I put out every day. Next, we have Davis Martin, who helped the White Sox to a loss versus the Mariners, tossing 7 and a third innings, allowing 4 hits and 2 earned runs. He walked 1 while striking out 3, inducing 8 whiffs with 23% CSW across 92 pitches. Davis Martin kept his cutter up versus lefties and away to right-handed batters, but it earned only 19% CSW as it constantly got outs on weak contact, while he kept his sinker and changeup arm side to righties and lefties, respectively. The sinker had the same effect as the cutter, getting a lot of outs on weak contact, but the changeup was supposed to be a whiff pitch, but it was somewhat ineffective in that regard, which forced Martin to rely on his four-seamer to get whiffs upstairs. It did the job with a trio of whiffs and 25% CSW, but don't let this start from Martin fool you. He did a great job of getting weak contact, but I wouldn't expect his BABIP luck to be this fortunate. Really, that's the only reason he was able to get through this start. You see the 3 strikeouts, you see the 8 whiffs, and the 23% CSW, heavily reliant on balls in play, allowing him to pitch into the 8th inning. I wouldn't expect this to be the status quo for Davis Martin moving forward, especially with the Rangers on deck. And lastly, we've got Sonny Gray, who helped the Cardinals to win versus the Tigers, tossing 6 shutout innings, allowing 3 hits and 1 walk while striking out 10. He induced 13 whiffs with 30% CSW across 90 pitches. And Sonny Gray is the epitome of an elite cherry bomb. Across his last 4 starts, he's turned in 2 outings, totaling 13 runs and 10 Ks, and another pair of outings totaling 0 runs and 18 strikeouts. And this was one of the sunny starts. Despite featuring 7 pitches, Gray was able to effectively separate each pitch. His sweeper stayed low and arm side, leading his arsenal with 5 whiffs, while his four-seamers was located upstairs to righties and jammed lefties for 4 whiffs and 32% CSW. Gray's curve was used to steal strikes on the outside edge to lefties, and it did so, leading his arsenal with 4 called strikes, while his cutter crisscrossed with his sinker on the glove side edge, and his changeup, which he only threw 3 times, rounded out his repertoire. As you can see, Gray has a ton of weapons, and he really only needs a couple of them working to find success. But when he can't, then he has those blowups like we saw last time out. Luckily, that's pretty rare for Gray. I think we've seen a couple more than usual early on, as he's got an ERA over 4, but the 1.13 whip and more than a strikeout per inning suggests Gray is going to get back on track soon. And when he does get back on track, like we saw on Monday, it really makes up for those poor performances. Gray gets the Diamondbacks next, and I'm not afraid of starting him there. But if you'd like a breakdown of every single start from Monday, give the Plus Pitch podcast a listen and check out Nick's daily SP roundup over on pitcherlist.com. Now we'll head to the bullpen and check out the relievers that got saves and the closers that pitched outside of save situations or blew their saves. Starting with the former, Carlos Estevez recorded his 14th save with a scoreless 9th. He continues to lock things down for the Royals. Aroldis Chapman recorded his 7th save with a scoreless 9th. Kenley Jansen bounced back and recorded his 9th save with a scoreless 9th. Shelby Miller recorded the final out of the game for his 5th save of the season. That was after Ryan Thompson struggled through the first 2 outs of the 9th, allowing a pair of runs before Miller came on to save the day. Josh Hader recorded his 12th save with a perfect 9th. Andres Munoz recorded his 15th save as he leads the American League in saves and is now tied with Robert Suarez for the MLB lead. Munoz recorded the final out of the game as well, similar to Shelby Miller, after Troy Taylor struggled to shut down that inning. And lastly, Trevor McGill recorded his 7th save with a hitless 9th. In terms of closers to pitch outside of save situations or blow their saves, David Bednar pitched the 7th, down by 1, and proceeded to allow 2 runs. New manager in Pittsburgh, Don Kelly, is really screwing this up for David Bednar. He should know you don't throw David Bednar in the 7th inning down by 1 and let him allow 2 runs like that. You just don't do, it's just not a big brain manager move like I would be making if I was the manager of the Pirates. Clearly they're not listening to the First Pitch podcast and being like, oh, wow, who can we replace Derek Shelton with? It should probably be Jake Crumpler, but that's what the Pirates would be saying if they were listening to this podcast, but they're not. And that's why they're in the situation that they are, having to fire their manager in the first place. Nonetheless, get David Bednar out of the 7th inning and back into the 9th inning. Lastly, we've got Daniel Palencia, who was handed a save opportunity for the Cubs with Porter Hodge out. Ryan Presley pitched the 7th in that one, and Drew Pomeranz pitched the 8th, but then Palencia gave up 2 runs in the 9th to blow his first save and take his first loss, and so things keep moving on in Chicago. Not really sure who's going to be the closer. My my favorite guess would have been Palencia for the Cubs because of his electric stuff, and I would rather have him over Presley with the way that he's been pitching. But after struggling in his first chance, I'm not really sure where they're going to go now. Maybe we see Ryan Presley back in the closer role in just a couple days. But if you'd like more information on relievers, check out Rick Graham's weekly articles over on pitcherlist.com. And before we look forward to today's games, we're going to take a quick break. Now we'll look forward to Tuesday, May 20th, a day in which we'll have a full slate of 16 games as the Guardians and Twins will resume their suspended game. My matchup of the day is the other Guardians-Twins matchup, as we'll see Gavin Williams take on Chris Paddack. I'm a huge Gavin Williams fan, have been for a couple of years now, just hoping for him to display a lot of cutters versus the Twins and find some success there, while Chris Paddack is somebody that's fun to watch. Not as fun as he was during his debut season when he was really Cowboy Chris Paddack and had all that emotion on the mound, but we don't see that much anymore. Nonetheless, he's still fun to watch. In terms of probable starters, we've got 5 guys in the auto starts tier, including Tarek Skubal in St. Louis, Yoshinobu Yamamoto versus the Diamondbacks, and Dylan Cease in Toronto. We've got 4 guys in our probably starts tier and 8 guys in our questionable starts tier, and that's where we'll find our streamer of the day in the aforementioned Chris Paddack, who's taking on the Guardians. Paddack is somebody who's been finding a lot of success after blowing up in his season opening start versus the White Sox, and he's found a lot of success recently. We were expecting the Guardians to come out with a lefty-leaning lineup to go against Chris Paddack throwing from the right side, but that wouldn't be smart because Paddack is somebody who employs a changeup, and that's honestly his best pitch, and that's a pitch that does better against opposite-handed batters. So I think Paddack is going to have some success against a lefty-heavy Guardians lineup. I'd also keep an eye out for Ryan Weathers, who takes on the Cubs in Miami. Weathers was electric in his debut, displaying increased fastball velocity. He took on the Cubs in that one too and took them down. So I have no reason to believe he won't be able to do that in this one. Let's hope that velocity sticks. In terms of hitter suggestions, I go for Angels and A's hitters in Sutter Health Park. It's been an offensive-friendly ballpark this year, and we'll see Kyle Hendricks square off against Gunnar Hoglund. We've got a rookie pitcher versus a very veteran pitcher. I don't see this one being a pitcher's duel. I'll also look at Astros and Rays hitters in Steinbrenner Field. Going back to this one after it didn't go too well yesterday, we'll see Brandon Walter make his MLB debut against Zach Littell, who hasn't been too hot this year. I think we could see an offensive explosion in Florida. And lastly, I'll look at Phillies and Rockies hitters in Coors Field. Pretty obvious there. We'll see Jesus Luzardo square off against Antonio Senzatella. So maybe target some Phillies hitters. Probably Max Kepler is a good streaming option on Tuesday. And I will close things out with our relievers to watch. Carlos Estevez has pitched on back-to-back days, so expect Lucas Erceg to be the team's closer on Tuesday. Josh Hader has pitched on back-to-back days and in 3 of the last 4, but so has Brian Abreu. So maybe we see Steven Okert or Caleb Ort get a save for the Astros on Tuesday. Kenley Jansen has pitched in 3 of the past 4 days, but so have Hector Neris and Ryan Zefferjon. So they'll probably just let Kenley Jansen go another day. Trevor McGill has pitched on back-to-back days, but so have Abner Uribe, Nick Mears, and Jared Koenig. So maybe Yoel Payamps gets a save opportunity for the Brewers today. And lastly, Shelby Miller has pitched on back-to-back days. So one of Kevin Ginkel or Jalen Beeks should see a save opportunity for the Diamondbacks. But that'll do it for today's episode of the First Pitch Podcast. Make sure to head on over to pitcherlist.com to check out all of the great articles and features we have on the site. Sign up for PL Plus or PL Pro to gain access to the Discord and to support the Pitcher List staff. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler. Tune in live on YouTube tomorrow and every day for a new installment of the podcast. And make sure to enjoy the day as we are blessed with another day of baseball.